Hello. Okay, so I've got John's guitar here. This is a 1940 D18. Today we're going to try some Martin Kovar strings, which I have not personally tried before. They look pretty cool. They look a lot more like kind of nickel strings or Monel strings kind of tend to look like. Yeah, let's give it a go and see what it sounds like, I guess. Yeah, so my first impression is very snappy strings. I can tell that there is a warmness and roundness to the note. Also, there's something about the winding in the feel underneath my fingers. It does certainly feel like there's some tighter winding here.
I'm going to get my opinion on this one.
Yeah, these are strings are very comfortable. I usually use a coated string, and these feel similar. They're not like super slick, but they're also not grippy on your fingers. I like them. They sound good. Kind of have the nice, almost nickel wound woody tone that people look for with kind of a vintage style string. But yeah, I'd use these. These are really nice. I like them.
So since I've played this guitar before, and I've played it with, I have several different types of strings on the years. I think John's put GHS Americanas on here. He's put D'Addario XS strings. My first impression with these strings is that it does seem to be really articulate, but also warm, which is not always the case with strings that are warmer than phosphor bronze, kind of like Monels or nickel strings. This is all very subjective too, which is a difficult thing to articulate. But with strings that are warmer, they do not always articulate very well. But I'm noticing that while these strings are warmer, they do articulate well, which I like.
So first, thing I'm hearing, there's definitely more warmth to it, which is very interesting because I know a lot of people right now in the vintage guitar world are wanting to go towards nickel for its just like earthiness, and there's definitely a lot of that here, but I'm also getting some metallic bite, which is something I miss from any of the Monels / nickel stuff. There's definitely something here that still feels like a fresh string. On those strings, I feel like I'm starting with a deader string, and I'm not feeling that here. There's warmth, there's roundness. There's also a little bit different flex to how they do. I'm checking the bend as well. I don't feel it as much in the right hand as I do in the left. So it definitely is a little more flexibility to this core, which is kind of neat. What I'm very happy though is that it doesn't lack it in tension on the right hand.
The tone, I would say, for the Kovar strings is very warm, very crisp. It almost reminds me of how a cedar tone wood sounds in that range where you get that nice crisp, up in the crispy frequencies, that very top end. But you get the nice warm fullness of a warm string, and just like it has a lot of articulation too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not as bright as phosphor bronze, which is what I tend to use. It's a little bit deeper and more mellow than the phosphor bronze strings are.
Well, I'm used to phosphor bronze for warmth, and anytime I try like nickel or different alloys, they tend to get too bright for me. But these are kind of an exception. They still have that cut, almost like maple is a tone wood, where it really does cut, but it still has warmth to it. There's still low end, and there's still some roundness to the note. So I really like them. I think they're great.
The actual feeling of the strings, I wouldn't say I'm noticing them to be any easier or harder to play than any other gauge per se, but I do feel that they do feel good sliding around. Of course, you still have some of that sliding, uncoated noise that you'll get, which is undesirable for recording probably, but I do feel like the strings are very playable.
I was kind of talking about that. Yeah, the flexibility of that core. It definitely flexes more. I don't know if I notice it feeling any lighter or easier on my hands, but I definitely feel a flex in the left hand less in the right, which I'm happy about because again, that's my most fussy thing is I don't want guitar strings to flex underneath the pick. I want them to release and snappy. So I don't feel that, but I definitely do feel a light ease to bending.
The feel is very, I agree straight up with what they're saying. I especially agree with John where in the sense that the left hand, it is lighter to push down, it feels like, lighter to bend. You can really get the bending going or vibrato. It's super easy to do that for a medium set, which usually a medium set for me, it's hard for that. But with this being a medium in the Kovar, it's very easy to bend and do vibrato notes. The wrapping on it does feel really smooth. But like John said, you don't really lose any resistance on the right side like you do on some strings if you go to a lighter gauge. But I definitely agree with what Martin's claiming on that.
Yeah, they're not sharp, they're not grippy. There's like on some strings you can actually feel the winds. You can't feel them on these. These are, you feel them a little bit, but they're very, very small. They're very smooth underneath your fingers.
These things feel great. I mean, one of the things that usually when I'm playing John's guitars is you can feel that tension of that 13 gauge on there. I mean, I do have some guitars with 13s, but I like 12s typically, and I don't feel like I'm struggling at all with tension or just, it actually feels a little bit lighter than a 13. I don't know if they do something different with the tension, but it's really comfortable.
Yeah, so one of the claims that Martin is making on these strings, from what I understand, is that they're supposed to be a little bit longer lasting because they are more tightly wound or anti-corrosive in that way. So they're right at $20, I believe, which is comparable with a set of Elixirs or D'Addario XS strings, the white package. So I would say that the only question that I would have with these strings is longevity relative to those string choices. I think that time will tell throughout this test and with people kind of playing this here how these kind of hold up here amongst many different people's hands. But as far as the sound, I'm actually quite impressed with the sound. Warm and articulate, and now we just gotta kind of test longevity and see how those are relative to Elixir and D'Addario.
I'm wanting to give this a further shot. One of the things that I liked the character of Monel strings. There was something warm and earthy that happens with those strings, but they never lasted very long for me. And they also were missing some of the metallic bite that I like to hear a little bit of that. So from the beginning, I say this gives me that vintage warmth. And I think for this guitar, it's a perfect fit. I'm real curious to see if I could do a full recording session with it. From what I was told, there's going to be a lot more life to the strings, and I do find them to give a totally different character to this guitar, making it feel more woody, more natural, yet I still have some brightness and character to it.
I think for $20, it's definitely a big upgrade over Monel or Nickel because these seem like they're going to last a while. Just the way it feels and everything, I bet that it has that characteristic that you do lose a little bit in the Nickel and the Monel strings. I think it'll sit right there in the perfect range. It's definitely worth the upgrade for someone who wants a little bit lighter of a feel in general, and then the nice crisp tone of it.
Yes, I would try these out. These are about in the price range what I usually spend on strings anyway, and I'm always down to try new strings out, and I think I have a guitar at home that they'd work well on.
Absolutely. I think that different guitars ask for different strings, and sometimes you have a guitar that maybe is lacking a little bit in that cut, and these strings would be great for that. It's the same price point as I pay for any other string, really, that's a decent string, so I think it's right there. I would definitely try them, and I think you'll be happy on certain guitars. I believe it will help bring out some of those things you might be missing if you're stuck with phosphor bronze or an 80-20 or something like that.